right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm Jessie Brandt, Director of Programs and Operations for the Global Wellness Summit and Institute. Please introduce yourself in the chat and let us know where you're joining us from. Some quick logistics. Feel free to choose between gallery or speaker view. Please keep yourself on mute when you're not speaking, and I will be muting everyone now. Speaker, remember to unmute yourself. This call is being recorded, and we will share the recording along with the chat in a follow-up email with everyone who registered. I now have the pleasure of introducing you to Nancy Davis, our Chief Creative Officer and Executive Director. Nancy, over to you.
Thank you, Jessie, and welcome everyone to the August full moon celebration. We're thrilled you're joining us today. This is an important moment in the history of the Wellness Moonshot as it marks a reignition of the project. More about that in just a moment. The term moonshot originally came from President John F. Kennedy's mission to land a man on the moon in the 1960s. Our equally ambitious goal is to create a world free of preventable disease. We got the slide. There we go. Okay. You might recognize some familiar faces on this slide. This was the photo from the launch of the Moonshot, which took place in 2017 at our summit at the Breakers in Palm Beach. Very illustrious group. This new chapter of the Moonshot is a proud collaboration with WisdomWorks and Renee Moorfield. Renee is the CEO of WisdomWorks, a social enterprise she co-founded in 1999 to champion a world where everyone thrives, no exceptions. Renee has advised global brands such as Coca-Cola, Nike, Hermes, Booz Allen Hamilton, Cox Automotive, Hyatt, Barilla, Merck, and many more. Renee and her colleague Kate McIver are here today as we begin this new way forward together. Renee is also a member of the Global Wellness Institute's advisory board. Renee, over to you to share your thoughts about this new collaboration.
Thank you so much, Nancy. At WisdomWorks, our mission has always been to put thriving at the center of how leaders, organizations, and communities operate. It's really the reason that I co-founded the company a long time ago. That's why this collaboration with the Wellness Moonshot feels like such a natural fit for us. Together, I think we have an extraordinary opportunity not only to work toward a world free of preventable disease, but to resource each other around the world through the power of awareness, connection, and action. Kate and I are sincerely honored to be part of this new chapter with you, this growing Wellness Moonshot community. And we look forward to supporting our collective impact because we see this not as just a bold vision, but a shared journey that we're on together.
Thank you, Renee. We always like to start our Moonshot webinars with a little information about the full moon of the month. So the August full moon is known as the sturgeon moon. And the sturgeon moon, named by Native American tribes, marks the time of year when the large lake sturgeon were plentiful and easily caught. Symbolically, the sturgeon moon represents resilience, wisdom, endurance, and authenticity, encouraging personal reflection, emotional clarity, and alignment with one's deeper vision or community role. I can't think of a better moon to have above us in the night sky as we embark on this reigniting of the Wellness Moonshot. And speaking of resilience, wisdom, endurance, and authenticity, it's my pleasure to introduce Susie Ellis, Chair and CEO of the Global Wellness Institute and Global Wellness Summit, and a guiding light for the Wellness Moonshot. Susie was the spark that lit the flame that became the Wellness Moonshot, and we've all benefited from her guidance as we developed this important focus on prevention. Susie, a few words?
Thank you, Nancy, and thank you, Renee. I'm very excited about this reigniting. It is the most timely because right now I think there is more interest and excitement about prevention than ever before. It was really Richard Carmona, who you're going to hear from, and I together that launched the Moonshot all those years ago. And I feel like we were very early, as well as all those people on the stage, a world free of preventable disease. But now more people are embracing it. And in particular, it was, and I think if there's nothing you remember, it's the very thing that Richard Carmona said at our second summit when he was on stage, that about 70% of disease is preventable. And it just shocked me, and it still shocks me today to think that 70% of disease and 70% of deaths are preventable. And we are in the wellness arena, and we can help that become more important than all this focus on disease. So thank you, Nancy, and thank you all for gathering together. It's a very important thing that we're all behind.
Thank you so much, Susie. And as Susie mentioned, when she did light that flame, she did it with Richard Carmona, the 17th U.S. Surgeon General and Chief of Health Innovations for Canyon Ranch. Rich has been at the forefront of the global conversation about prevention for decades and has led the Wellness Moonshot effort since its inception. Rich is also a member of the Institute's advisory board, and he joins us today as we enter this new era. Rich, your thoughts? You want to unmute, Rich?
Good morning, and I'm thrilled to be here with my global wellness family. And I think probably the most important thing now to do is point out the fact that without the Global Wellness Institute and the Global Wellness Summit, we wouldn't be having this conversation today, because our organization and all of the great people that are members are really emblematic of what the world needs today. You know, a flattening, if you will, so that we can all understand how interconnected we are. And so the thing that drove me through my years as Surgeon General, and especially after joining, I guess, being one of the original members of our Global Wellness Summit and Institute, is that it is a vehicle that connects us all. It's a vehicle that recognizes there are challenges, a vehicle that recognizes that children dying of disease in sub-Saharan Africa or other parts of the world where there's famine, where there's instability, affects all of us. And so I'm glad that we have this wonderful platform now that we can all be interconnected. And I give credit to Susie when we had this conversation, I think it's about 8 years ago, one night just before our Global Wellness Summit started. And it was Susie who drove us, who said, you know, we've got to do something bigger. This, you know, I love what we're doing. It's wonderful. We're connecting. And we came up with this idea. Well, let's do something real bold. Let's do the Moonshot. Let's challenge the world to work on a value proposition that is about stating the obvious, which is creating a world free of preventable disease. And I remember how excited Susie got that she didn't know the statistics and how much of the disease and economic burden we had in the world was preventable. And yet, when you look around the world, there are very few organizations that unite us as a world. The World Health Organization is one, of course, but that's struggling as well, too, for a whole host of problems that we can get into later. So I think this is a gift to humanity, our Global Wellness Institute, which does all of the research, which has defined the market for global wellness, and then the place where we all come together and crowdsource the best information every year at our summit all over the world, really sends a message, more than a verbal message, but a real physical message, that we all get together routinely and we are all focused on the same things, creating a world free of preventable disease. And interestingly enough, August is National Wellness Month. So it's kind of ironic that we're having this conversation now. And it's also National Immunization Month, which of course opens up the door for a whole lot of discussion. And fact is that if you want to pick something that maybe is the most important scientific advancement in the history of mankind, you could argue immunizations are. And yet we still struggle with misinformation and disinformation and people who fear the very experts in information that drives them to do the right thing, for instance, with immunizations. And we remain divided, and the mental health burden and so on. So, I mean, I can go on for a long time, but I'm so thankful that we have this Global Wellness Summit and Institute. Had it been in existence when I was Surgeon General, my life would have been much easier in dealing with the problems that I had. So, Nancy, thank you. Susie, thank you. And a big hug to all of my colleagues online this morning.
Rich, thank you so much. Isn't every month International Wellness Month? Not just August? Every month, right?
Yes, ma'am. Sure.
Okay, well, we will come back to you, Rich. Thank you so much. And Rich was, of course, among the people, and we put that slide up not for very long, but there was an incredible group of pioneers that really came together to launch the Moonshot. And Susie always tells the story of her trying to find a way to galvanize a group like that, all of whom had their own approach to prevention. Susie, do you want to just mention that for a moment, and then we will get to our next incredible guest?
Sure, Nancy. Yes, the genesis of all this was that, we had the summit in Palm Beach, and we were going to have Dr. Oz, and we had Dr. Roizen from the Cleveland Clinic, and we had Dean Ornish, and we had, all these illustrious people. And so I thought, well, I'm going to talk with them ahead of time and see if we can find out what is really working out there. So I called them and I spoke with them, and yeah, I was so surprised at their response. I talked to Dean Ornish, and he said, well, what's really working out there is my program, my heart disease program. And I thought, well, that's good. And yes, I knew about that. Michael Roizen, he had a program at the Cleveland Clinic. Andrew Weil, he has a program. And then I thought, wow, all of these people have a program that works, but this isn't working for everyone. It's all different. It's confusing. How can that be? We need something. And that's when I went to Rich and I said, Rich, the experts don't agree. Just like you said with the vaccines, people don't agree. We need something where people can all agree. And that's where a world free of preventable disease was something that we thought, well, maybe certainly they could agree on that. And that's in fact what happened, which is why they all came up on stage. And also on that stage was Mayo Clinic, there was Weight Watchers, Lanzerhoff from Europe. It was everyone agreed, yes, a world free of preventable disease is something we can agree on. And then there's lots of different ways that we can move towards that. So that's the story, Nancy.
Yeah, thank you, Susie. And it's true. It's you can't be against it. And that was the important thing that helped galvanize everyone. All right, I'm going to turn it over to my co-moderator and colleague, Renee Moorfield, now to introduce another extraordinary leader.
Thanks so much, Nancy. This one is my pleasure to introduce. As you mentioned before, I've spent the last 26 years talking to leaders around the world, advising them and their organizations. And when I met this particular leader, it was such an absolute treat. So I am introducing the brilliant wellness leader, Aradhana Kawala. Aradhana is a global authority on travel, tourism, and hospitality with over 20 plus years across 75 plus countries. She is the CEO and founder of Aptamine Partners, advising governments, destinations, and global organizations on sustainable tourism and development. And she serves on multiple high-profile boards, including Red Sea Global. And if that is not enough, Aradhana has been recognized among the 25 most influential women in hospitality and frequently contributes to global policy forums such as the United Nations, the World Economic Forum, and the G20. And before I say welcome, Aradhana, we should all clap our hands because she also just completed her PhD. So, congratulations, Aradhana. That is a super big deal. I've been on that journey myself, and it is a ton of work. Welcome to the conversation.
You're all very kind. Thank you very much. Pleasure to be here.
Wonderful. So you and I had a wonderful opportunity to recently talk about what it takes to thrive as a leader in a turbulent world. We all can feel the disruptions happening all throughout our world, politically, socially, culturally, and in so many ways. So I'd like to go a bit deeper with you in support of this Wellness Moonshot community on what that does mean to thrive. I have a couple of questions for you, and afterwards we'll have times for a Q&A from the audience. So everyone in the audience, please feel free to put your comments and questions into chat. My colleague and dearest friend, Kate McIver, who has been on this journey with me for a long time, is going to be moderating that chat. Aradhna, when we did get a chance to talk, I learned that the democratization of wellness is a true and deep passion for you. In fact, I believe you recently took your children on a trip to Tibet so that all of you could positively serve the wellness of others in some way. Why did you feel it was important to take them on this trip?
So this is a social impact expedition, Renee, and we do this every year. And there are really two parts to it. There is the travel part, and then there is a service part. And in my view, both of them are inextricably and intrinsically tied, because if you think about it, service and travel has ultimately the same goal: to make others freer to shape their own lives. And service as a foundational philosophy is core in my household. If there's something I teach my children, it's that you have to constantly and consistently ask, how am I being of service to others every single day in everything that we do? And that's to use your position not for comfort, but for contribution. Because you see, service is really not understood. Real service, it's a lot beyond charity. And for me, travel is also service. It's not just about what you give back. It's also an inward service, because when you travel, you're kind of hopefully rewarding yourself with pause and stillness in a very distracted, fragmented world that we live in. So I've done the ticking of the countries, and now I want to slow down and notice and linger, and feel the textures of the places that I visit. And travel, if you think about it, at least the right kind of travel does exactly that. Because when you're crossing borders, be it geographical, cultural, comfort, or borders of your mind, you are in service and you return home a completely different person. And it's about really seeing the place that you visit, because to serve is to witness someone or a place in their full complexity, and to be present without any kind of an agenda. Uh, I'm sure you will agree that when we travel, there is no better antidote to certainty of any kind, right? It strips us of certainty, it dissolves prejudice, and it kind of forces us to be humble. And if you think about it, there is no better way to dismantle the divides that we have. I'm not just talking crossing borders, I'm talking, you know, uh, crossing the limits of our own imagination. And the world that we live in, where we are so eager to build walls, travel as an act of service might be the most radical act that we have left to us to kind of do something about it. Um, yeah, and for my kids, I think when they go to these places, so we trek up the Himalayas with solar panels on our back, and we electrify schools, colleges, monasteries, nunneries as we go along. And I know my children really value seeing how so much joy can be found even in the most fractured places, and despite all of their adversities and sufferings. And I think you learn there is so little that separates us at a very human level. I mean, we're all the same. Everything else is, it's what we build in our minds.
Mm-hmm. I love what you're saying. There's so many, we could have 2 hours of conversation right now about just what you've said so far. One is this idea that travel is an opportunity to expand our minds and to expand our hearts and to understand people in a way that we may have not understood before without being in their culture, being in their world. When we measure when we measure those kinds of factors, like seeking perspectives that are different than your own, when we measure things like awe and appreciation in leaders across the world, we found that it is core to their ability to amplify cultures of thriving, workplaces of thriving, but it's also core to their own well-being. So it's interesting how you've woven those together in your trip to Tibet, this idea of travel and expansion of the mind and heart and service, and how those really complement each other. And I love the impact that you are consciously making by providing your children, who are the future leaders of our world, with the opportunity to expand themselves at such a young age. So thank you for that. I want to be carrying your luggage next time you go to Tibet on one of those trips. I think I'll go along with you. So at WisdomWorks, we really believe that companies have an enormous role to play when it comes to creating thriving organizations and a well world. How do you believe companies can grow their businesses while also meaningfully advancing health and well-being wherever they are, and no matter the size of the organization? I understand, we're usually working with global organizations and they have lots of resources to make an impact if they choose to do so. But smaller organizations, we're working with some nonprofits right now that are smaller, and they also can make an impact. So how do you believe organizations can truly grow and meaningfully advance health and well-being?
Look, Renee, a profit with a higher purpose is not just possible. If you ask me, it's an imperative, right? Any business, big or small, micro, small, medium, whatever the size and scale, no business today should exist solely for the purpose of making profit. It can't be merely about margins. Business and companies are a force for societal transformation because companies can thrive and do so more profoundly when they embed profit with purpose. Now, whether it's by investing responsibility, having a philanthropic ethos, or scaling with intentionality, any business can do a lot more than grow. And that is the underlying truth. Because when done right, businesses can actually heal, which is the ultimate thing that you can expect from any structure of any kind. Now, to answer your question, how do you do that? For starters, impact can't be a side gig. So you have to make it foundational. And I love this quote. One of my professors used to say, the fish stinks from the head. So you have to empower the leadership with these expectations, and they have to be non-negotiable. Because if they don't buy, there's nothing else that trickles down to anywhere else in the organization. Next, you need to be really strategic about adopting philanthropic structures. It can be something as simple as payroll giving, checkout rounding, or the giving pledge. But it doesn't have to be just for the billionaires. The key is to commit a fixed share of what you make today and tomorrow to causes, be it social or causes close to your heart. And I'm all for measuring to manage, because unless you do that, you can't really see if something is having some kind of an impact. And we live in the age of the Aquarius. It's all about collaboration, guys. So partner with people, partner with organizations, partner with those who share your vision, resonate your values, and value doing things over the long term, as against making a one-off donation and saying, I've done my bit. And I think one of the things that businesses underestimate, and leaders really, is they think they're doing their job is enough. No, you have to amplify your message, and you have to educate, and you have to teach others to do the same, because that's how you create the ripple effect. And if you ask me, the two key things, any business, any size, to go back to your original point, they can do education and healthcare, right? There is no better way to break societal barriers, especially if you want to be impactful for underserved communities. I mean, look at the world we live in, right? Rich started by saying it. Conflicts, tariffs, misinformation. I mean, it's an incredibly complex world. We need a future where any kind of enterprise, big or small, fuels equity and well-being. Not just
Renee,
Well said.
I'm sorry, Aranda. Renee, maybe the same question to Rich. Because I think
Beautiful.
Rich's experience with working with big companies and being on big boards, and his passion for bringing prevention and well-being and that message into companies is as relevant to Rich. So maybe would you ask Rich that same question so we can ground ourselves in that? Thank you.
I would love to. Rich, I am not seeing you on my screen for some reason. I think you may be, because I think there's 3 or 4 pages here, but I will ask the question to you. How do you believe, with all of your experience with organizations, that companies can grow their businesses while they also meaningfully advance global health and well-being?
Renee, so nice to see you. And I am so thankful for all of the leadership work that you are doing, having been able to sit with you for some time and be interviewed, and the magnitude of what you're coming up with and understanding leadership, which is at the base of everything we're talking about today. So I'd like to give a big virtual hug to my colleague Aradhana. I loved her comments about service to others, and embedded in what she was saying is what caught my attention the most was her children. She's educating the next generation to be thoughtful leaders, to lead with purpose, to be caring, to be compassionate. These characteristics that sometimes are lost in this fast moving, disrupted world where we build walls and not bridges to connect to one another. So I just loved her comments, and really they inspire me. And Renee, you bring the best out in everybody when you have these discussions with people. You know how to get there. So I love this idea about travel with purpose. I love the idea about the intersection of economic benefit, but social good. It's okay to have a business, but have a heart and have empathy and have compassion. So I think she is mentioning all of those, and I want to thank her for those words of wisdom and her leadership. But also, it brought to mind something that I've taken for granted for years. Every year, when one of my grandchildren comes to be a teenager, and I've done this for years, I said, I want you to pick a place you want to go to in the world, and I'm going to take you with your grandma, and you have to make the case why you want to go there. And then when they make the case, I ask a lot of questions. Well, why there? What are the people like? What's the disease burden? What's the economic burden? What are you going to learn from that trip? And then every year, this only comes up every few years as they become teenagers, but then every year I take the family to a different geographic area, and we park someplace and visit the little villages and the people. And again, I'm always asking the question to the kids and grandkids, why are we here? What are we learning? How do they live? What's different from how we live? Again, trying to build a world that connects, as Aradhana so thoughtfully said, we have so much more in common that we have that divides us. And yet we spend too much time on the little things that divide us, which are mostly immaterial. So we are a world of 8 billion people, and we are 340 million of those 8 billion. And yet we have a disproportionate impact on the rest of the world because of who we are as we, the nation, our economy, our science, our technology. And so there's so much that we can export in everything we do. And for me personally, the boards I sit on, big global companies, things like that, I'm always looking for, as a fiduciary, I have responsibility economically. But equally important, if not more important, is what is the social benefit of what I'm doing any place in the world? How am I making it better for other people? It's not just about me. And again, in a world where there is...
I'm going to interrupt you, Rich, just because we wanted to focus this on, on what we could do in a business, which was the question. And I think you guys have both really answered it. And I just want to keep going on the questions and get to the questions from the audience too. So apologies for the interruption, but you know me, as the Sergeant Major, I keep things moving along. So
our business is wellness.
Yeah. Thank you, Rich. And what I'm really hearing from both of you is the power of having a higher purpose to the organization. That's so important. That really drives the activity of the organization, drives why you're making a profit, because profit is the whole, kind of the low-hanging fruit. So Aradhana, I'm going to come back to you because I have one more question, and then we are going to shift to more of a Q&A. As you and I have had a chance to get to know each other, I have realized that gratitude has been such a powerful leadership practice for both of us. I know for me, if I miss, it's an orientation and a way of seeing, and when I miss my gratitude practice, I can feel it. I can really feel the difference in my own being. How do you believe cultivating gratitude can help sustain our thriving and resilience, all of us in this Wellness Moonshot community and everyone who's not here that are part of creating a world free of preventable disease? How can cultivating gratitude help us in the demanding work of global wellness transformation? Because that's what we're all up to.
Oh, yes. I know you will resonate with this, Renee, because gratitude is so much more than a feeling, right? When we begin each day by acknowledging what is already good, we're creating a mental climate of abundance, not scarcity. So for me, it's a bit like a reset button. It keeps your heart open, your mind steady, and your relationships strong. But to me, more and more, gratitude is becoming less about listing all the blessings I should be thankful for and becoming more about paying attention to what is and being present. Because when we are present enough to notice what's already working, we stop being consumed by what's missing, right? I have an older sister and a younger brother, but my older sister, she's completely crazy, funny. And when we are traveling, she would often exclaim, looking out of the window, saying, "Oh, see the beauty." And this is at something completely random. And we would all laugh, like, what is she going on about? See the beauty. But guess what? Now I do that all the time with my children, with my colleagues, with my friends. I'm shouting out, see the beauty. Even in the most mundane, basic things, like the traffic chaos in a street in Delhi, which is awful, let me tell you. The kindness of a stranger, the fact that we are all here as a community, right? I mean, this is gratitude. In a sense, what we are doing by just being present is we are kind of erasing and killing the artificial barriers and fences between today and some better imagined better future. It's not real, it's fictional. And that openness to me it's key to gratitude, and to your point, something that really sustains thriving. In the global wellness community, where all of our work is demanding, we have to consciously remember that gratitude is not just it's not just a byproduct of our success. So we have done this, so we need to be thankful for this, right? It's a practice that makes thriving possible in the first place and keeps us anchored as leaders. I mean, think about it. To the fragmented, confused, incredibly complex world that we were talking about, gratitude can slow our impulse in the middle of a crisis. It can deepen our patience in the face of complexity. And when you as a leader live in that state, you invite others to match it. So you're not just kind of sustaining resilience, you're building it and you're sharing it. And I think most importantly, again, speaking of the world we live in, gratitude softens ego. It reminds us that achievements, be it in wellness, transformation, business, politics, anything, it's never it's not just us alone. It's a shared purpose. It's an act of collaboration. It's why we are here. It's community.
Yes.
I love it. And I love that you connected it back to really the first question, which is when we're in a state of gratitude, it amplifies. It amplifies. It is a natural act of service that we don't have to think about. We're in that state of being and it radiates to other people. So thank you for that. I think we're going to shift to Q&A.
Yeah, before we do that, Radha, how many countries have you visited?
140 plus.
140 plus. And if your sons were on this call, what would they say? What would you say their takeaway would be of their trip with you and this trip every year?
So, the first year they couldn't imagine because you have to go completely offline. There is no internet. It's 7 days,
And how old are your sons?
I have two sons, 16 and 10.
Okay.
So the first year they were like, "What are you doing? This is horrible. We hate you. I mean, you're an awful person." But after they came back from the trip, they couldn't stop talking about it to everyone.
Right.
They made a presentation in class, in school, their friends. I mean, this has become like a kind of a ritual. And then the next year, they were the ones who said, "Are we going back? Where are we going?" And now we're doing a very straitjacket, plain vanilla, boring holiday by the beach. And they would ask, "Are we not doing anything to give back?"
Oh, wow.
Which is nice.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Beautiful.
That is true leadership development.
Yeah, exactly.
Really is.
Exactly. And I just want to note about the Moonshot and, this conversation and where we're going with it. The partnership with Wisdom Works is really to bring into focus the importance of leadership, of well-being leadership, how important that is to making sure that a world free of preventable disease is not just a good idea and an audacious goal, but something that can be achieved. And we're going to be discussing over the coming months ways in which we can do that together. inspirational things that we can do. Renee writes beautiful newsletters that she puts together with Kate, and they interview people like Rich and Aradhna and others, giving us tremendous insight and access to this kind of thinking. There's tremendous science that we'll talk about how gratitude and the kinds of things we're talking about today really do impact your health and wellness and longevity and all of those things. So there's a lot coming. This is kind of the first kickoff to give you a little taste of all of that. We'll be doing these Moonshot calls probably every quarter. So be looking for more, and there'll be all kinds of follow-up email that you'll get. But I'm going to turn it over now to Kate McIver to take us through some Q&A.
Thank you, Nancy. Yes, so if you've had some questions come up as they've been talking, please put them in the chat. I know some of you have already been doing that. And I just want to build on what Nancy just said of, looking at how we as leaders, all of us on this call, can advance the Wellness Moonshot. How can we participate? And so I think there were some comments in here that I'm going to kind of maybe turn into a question and just kind of go based on that and say both to Aradhna, but also to Rich of where are you seeing this kind of leadership? So I know you've mentioned in your families and how you personally are doing it. I wonder where else you see this new type of leadership that blends this economic necessity of a business and our ability to impact the health and well-being of those that we serve through our endeavors. And so I wonder if you can answer, where else are you seeing this? I know, Aradhna, you mentioned a few examples when you were talking with Renee in our interview. So I want to start with you. Just where else are you seeing this kind of leadership?
So I would say, Kate, in the unusual places, where we don't look because we are constantly looking to our political leaders and CEOs of the large corporations for answers, and they might not be the one with the most wisdom, not because of anything else, but because they don't have the time to pause and to take in that stillness and really reflect before actually thinking of, coming up with clever solutions. But I find this in faith leaders, and I'm talking all faith, because it is about staying true to your values and your true north at all points when everything else around is crumbling. I see this with school teachers. I see this with healthcare professionals, because you turn up to save lives no matter what. And you saw this with war, you saw this with earthquakes, you see this on a daily basis. You are there saving lives no matter what, sometimes risking your own. I see this with people who just quietly go on doing their job, not realizing the impact that they're having. But to use the word that Rich started with, we're all connected. Everything that we do is connected. Businesses operate and think, we're in a vacuum and what's happening with the environment doesn't affect us. It's all the same house. If one room is burning, everyone else is involved. You can't stay insulated far too long.
Thank you, Aradhna. I think we can all resonate with what you're sharing and see examples ourselves. And so to the community, before I turn it over to Rich, maybe you also have some ideas of where you're seeing this happen in your own community. Feel free to put them in chat if you want, or share them with someone after this call. Rich, where are you seeing this type of leadership showing up in the work that you're doing?
Thanks so much, Kate. I want to piggyback on what Aradhna said. So much of it is in front of us every day invisibly, unless we carefully look for it. There are good people in every community that are struggling, whether it be in the faith-based community, where there's businesses, whether it's our elementary school teachers who see a bigger purpose and they understand how important it is to raise that, that next generation. There are organizations, United Nations, the World Health Organization, where they came to be after the Second World War to unite the world, okay? But yet the politics gets involved and it becomes very cumbersome and people get frustrated. But I think that the greatest I think people that I see are the ones that are just embedded in every community. You look at Gandhi, for instance, okay? A single person in the most, challenged areas in the world, famine and poverty and no jobs and people that with depression. And yet his message broke through, his humility, his commitment to people, So I think we need to pause, as Aradhana says, and take a look around us, because every day there are individuals and communities that live invisibly, but yet they have heart, they have compassion, they have purpose, and they understand it's bigger than them. And so I think if you stop them, they would never even realize, many of these people, that you can recognize well, this is just the way I run my life. This is how I treat my family. This is how I do things in my community. But those little points of light that are almost invisible to many people.
Yeah.
And so I start at the big organization level that, like I said, UN, WHO, things like that, who are there ostensibly to unite us. And unfortunately, often not of their own problem, but others get caught up in the politics, but yet they're there for that purpose. And then as we drill down, the most important thing, I think, are people like Aradhana, what she does with her children, to be able to be raising global citizens that are very aware of their environment and community. And so that's how we change the world. Every one of those contacts at a time. Travel with purpose is a wonderful thing that Aradhana talks about as well. And I think we can look at many increments below the silos we live in and how we connect them. And I think what Global Wellness Institute does best is to research that and bring it to the forefront. And what we do in our summit is to bring people together around that common value proposition, where we want to always look at the issue of economic good, but social benefit for everything we're doing as well. So I share Aradhana's passion and that of my colleagues within GWS and GWI and the Moonshot, because the Moonshot really is our purpose.
Okay, I think I'm going to, it's my job today to stop everybody, but I also want to point out that no one's answered the question that Kate has asked, which is
I
who
will,
is
sorry.
doing, well, Aradhana did, you
Sorry.
did school teachers and healthcare providers.
I can
think
give
we're
more
also
examples.
Yeah.
looking for, like, are there models for this? I think was at the heart of the question, not broader, big political overview, but are there companies or people, there are people on this call from all over the world. Do maybe they put in the chat for Kate to find who is actually doing this successfully?
May I answer that in 60 seconds, Nancy? So this also ties into one of the questions, and I'm going to try and answer the queries on chat. I'm not catching up. I'm slow, sorry. But there was a question about AI and Moonshot, so technology. So I'll give you an example. The bright spots, a country like Estonia, where tech and AI is being used, but to radically increase citizen participation. Another example, the city of Amsterdam. Amsterdam uses donut economics to align digital innovation with environmental and social goals. And to the person who asked the question in the chat, so do I think AI having a big role in the Moonshot? Absolutely, yes. We can use, and we have to use AI to solve everything from climate challenge to eradicate disease and redesign cities. But I think the question we need to be asking is, are we just going to allow AI to happen to us, or are we going to make sure it serves human thriving? And if it's the latter, we are good. Thank you.
Thank you, Rana, and thank you for going where the next question was going. So I was going to pull that in. You've already teed it up. And I would expand it, not only just AI, which is the more buzzy technology, but just technology in general. How can we use it to facilitate and amplify the Wellness Moonshot? And I think you already touched on that. I wonder, actually, Nancy or Susie, if you have some ideas as to how you all are thinking of integrating this into the Wellness Moonshot as well, and how you see it, the potential for it. Which one of you wants to go first? Susie.
Well, I think that AI is opening so many doors for people. I think we're all kind of in the process of discovering what it can do. And I think in general, being open to, I think of AI as something that is connecting more of us. And that's part of the importance of the moonshot. I look at, I like the idea of the moonshot because every month, and I'm glad we do this on the day of the full moon. It's a full moon today. And as I've said before, I didn't know this until, I got involved. It's a full moon at the same place every day. All over the world today, there will be a full moon. And so I like the idea of whenever I look at the moon, and that is, often because I walk my dog in the evening, whenever it's a full moon, I think, oh, it's a full moon, a world free of preventable disease, wellness moonshot. And I think about that there's 8 billion people, as Rich said. And what if we could get 8 billion people looking at the moon on the full moon and thinking about preventable disease? And so I don't have the answer about AI specifically helping with that, except I know it will take AI because AI is very rapidly connecting us and coming up. I mean, even if that was just something that came up for people when they did their queries in AI. So I don't have the full answer, but I know it's part of the solution.
Let me, maybe I can add on that. It's something that I've been thinking about for a while. And, as we look at a divided world, we also have a digital divide as we look at the world. And there are organizations that are popping up that actually are addressing this issue and bridging the digital divide. The National Digital Inclusion Alliance, Everyone On, connects low-income individuals with affordable internet. Human IT connects discarded devices that no one's using anymore and connects them to people who need devices and can't afford them. Fostering social connection and belonging to Horizon Organization, TAHORA, Foundation for Social Connectiveness, social discovery groups, and then promoting cross-cultural understanding and collaboration, UNESCO, United Planet, Masterpiece. Many of these organizations are being driven by digital companies that we all know about every day, that they have a heart and they have compassion, and they're returning value to shareholders, but they're also returning value to the world by connecting us in different ways. And I think if we just focus on AI, we're losing the bigger picture of communication platform in general for those people who are, disparate. They're out there and they don't have the means, they don't have the knowledge or the education. We need to bring them all together. So there are many organizations out there, to Nancy's question. And if I veered off with my passion and didn't get specific, my apologies to my sergeant major, but there's a lot out there and I think the good news is we in GWS and GWI can bring all of these organizations together to make a better world and a well world.
Rich, no apologies necessary. If we could harness your passion and hook it up to some kind of generator, I'm pretty sure we could power a small nation. So you never have to apologize. I want to just say that I changed my Apple Watch to the moon today in honor of this call, doing my part. And in answer, Kate, to your question, and to add on to Susie, I think AI is a powerful tool. And we're only beginning to learn how to use it to the benefit of a project like this, but it seems to have enormous power for a project where we are trying to really do something this audacious and this, to make this kind of change and help people make, lifestyle change. It's the hardest thing to do. And I'm sure AI is going to play a role in this going forward, especially with young people such as yourself, Kate, in the driver's seat here with us. I'm sure that's going to help a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's hear from you, Kate, the younger person. How do you see AI helping with the Wellness Moonshot?
Yeah, I really appreciate what everybody has said. I think it does have the potential to help connect those who may not have been connected before in a faster way. And I also second what Aradhana was saying about making sure that we have that, but with the human aspect. And so I think there's something to the blend of both of those. However, it can help us connect to other individuals and other humans, I think is where the real potential lies, especially around the Wellness Moonshot. As we know and as have come up, actually, one of the things that I wrote down is, and has come up multiple times, is connection. And so if we can really find ways of listening to each other, talking to each other, I think that is where the real potential lies, not only just for AI, but as Rich mentioned, all types of communication platforms around the world. And I think this is one of those. I know we didn't get to all of the questions that came in the chat. There were some good policy questions, some possibilities for partnerships, getting input from each other. And so I would just say, please continue to share with each other. There's also lots of resources on the Global Wellness Institute that dive into more of those questions that you have that can build on what we're doing with the Wellness Moonshot. And this is just the start of a conversation. So thank you all so much. And back over to you, Nancy.
Yeah, I was going to say, if there's a question you want to raise from the chat, there's time to do it right now. If there's one that you feel, I'm sure there were a number. I was trying to look, but it's hard to do that when you're moderating, but that are similar. If there's one you'd like to pull up, we could maybe talk about that for a minute before we get to our close.
Sure. The main question that a few seconded was around policies, and so I don't know if we can answer that in a minute, but I'm gonna test this. So I'm gonna put you on the spot, Rich. You only have a minute.
Yes.
But so we're gonna time. But it was around what are you seeing around health policies, not only in the U.S. but globally, that can support this the health and well-being of individuals.
I will say that Aradhana can probably take a minute as well, because she's
For
seen
sure.
a lot
Yeah,
of world
I'll
stuff.
just start with her.
Well, I'll try and do it in less than a minute. What I will tell everybody to do, look to ripplematch.com. This is a list of 35 companies with powerful social impact initiatives, all of which are covering the things that you just brought up, Kate, at a different level. So there are organizations out there that are economically powerful, but also with big social hearts, trying to make the world a weller place, if you will.
Thank you. And do you see them? They're also working on policy. So I think that was yeah.
Every one of them has policies as how they are translating their wealth in whatever it is they're doing to communities to connect them.
Wonderful. Thank you for staying within that time frame. I love it. Aradhana, over to you. What are you seeing in your work?
But I just wanted to kind of summarize with one key theme. And I just want to go back to the start. This is the first time I'm attending the Wellness Moonshot, and I think it's absolutely fantastic. And if ever there was a doubt in our mind at the GWI community, what is the relevance of this moonshot, we should link it with, Renee and her work at WisdomWorks and your work, Kate, because what we have in the world is a thriving gap. And that is coming because of a lack of trust. And if you want to close that thriving gap, you need a moonshot. And it is the single biggest consequence of this kind of a gap is that you lose trust. And that is the mother of all crises, right? We don't have trust today in institutions, in businesses, in people, in rulers, in governments, and you can't do anything without trust. You can't run a company, you can't run a government, you can't even run a neighborhood barbecue without trust. So I think if you were joining the dots, there is a thriving gap, and a moonshot is the need of the hour to fill that.
Thank you so much. And I go back to our question, what are you seeing around policy in the work that you are doing? And I think they're both connected to what you were just saying, but I'll let you expand on that.
So again, from a policy perspective, with regards to thriving or with regards to specifically travel tourism, how do you mean?
Health and well-being. So kind of what policies are you seeing that support the health and well-being of their communities, their nations,
at a governmental level?
I will open the question. I think Rich also offered company examples. So whichever.
I think the question came up around policy in countries and governmental policy, and it may be the kind of thing that cannot be answered on this call because it's very individual and it gets very political, but something that we can, maybe put some thought to for the next call. I actually, what I want to do is ask Susie to make a comment about the policy series and the reason for it at the Institute, because I think this whole idea of how do you affect change really in some part has to be at this level. You know, I mean, we've talked about individual, business, and now the question of sort of government. And Susie, maybe just the genesis of the policy series.
Yes, Nancy, thank you. And I think this is a good topic to sort of summarize, because I have found, you know, as individuals, there's many things we can do. As organizations, as companies, there's a lot we can do. But policy at the government level, there's a lot that they do. Singapore is a good example. So if a country, and Singapore, it's a small country, but nevertheless, they decided that health and wellness is an important value for them. And so they made a lot of policy decisions, such as having more places to walk instead of always driving cars, having healthier foods available for people, encouraging physical activity, etc. Well, anyway, they decided that, 20 years ago, and now the citizens of that country are so much healthier than they were before, that Dan Buettner, who is, as you probably all know, author of The Blue Zones, has called it the sixth blue zone. And so that is an example of a country that decided we are going to have policies that will help our citizens be healthier. Now, that had big impact. And so at the Global Wellness Institute, it was actually our researchers that suggested a couple years ago that they would do a policy series on physical activity, policy series on mental wellness. And I'm excited about that because this is addressing countries and people in policy. And I think we can just move the needle a lot more. So those are all available on the Global Wellness Institute website. And it's under the policy manual, and you know, for wellness real estate, for 7 different sectors, policy. I think it's something to get into the hands of people who really have an effect, because policy, you know, trickles down.
And that, thank you, Susie. And that is, you know, we give away all of our research for free. So go to the Institute website, download that policy series, see what answers some of these questions. You're going to get a follow-up email. They're going to have a lot of links. We want you to sign up to become involved with us. If you haven't already, we want you to sign up for the Wisdom Works newsletter. That's going to be reflected in the Moonshot information going forward. There's going to be a lot of things, a lot of calls to action, all of them terrific, and help us stay connected. And I'm going to just end with a thought, a kind of where we began, and that's the whole idea of the Moonshot was John F. Kennedy. And of course, his famous quote was, "Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country." And that has come up as an idea a few times on this call. And I want to leave you with that. What can we all do for where we are in our communities, the roles we play individually and as businesses and organizations? And thank you all. Look up at the moon tonight and think of us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Wonderful to be with you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everybody.